Well, hey, what's up, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of the Amazing Seller Podcast. This is episode number 714, and today I am fired up for a couple of different reasons. And number one, well, I just got back from an event in San Diego, and the name of the event was Flynn Con. And if you guys have not heard some of the past episodes, I've had Pat Flynn on in the past. He's, to me, one of my early mentors, and now I've become good friends with him. I just attended this event, one of his first events ever that he put on for about 300 people. It was awesome, and I want to give you a little bit of my notes. Now, I went there for two different reasons. Number one, I wanted to experience his event for the first time and really immerse myself within the actual audience or the market, okay? And I wanted to see where people are struggling, and this way here, I could also get a little bit of an inside look. So that was one reason. The second reason is I'm always a student. I always want to learn. And so it doesn't matter if I'm going to even my own event, I'm going to be learning from speakers. And it's funny, I see Michael Hyatt, who's, he's got a massive company. At his events, he's generally still taking notes and learning. And he's actually talked about that on one of his podcast episodes. So I think we're always learning. And what I wanted to do is give you some of my notes. Now, I could be on here for probably around 2 or 3 hours going through my notes because I have a whole book here full of them. But what I really wanted to do is kind of take it, distill it down a little bit, give you some of the highlights, but also some things that you could take away. And I titled this, How to Achieve Everything You Want. And what I mean by that is anything that we want out there, any business that we want, anything in our life that we want, we are in total control of that. And you guys have heard me say that time and time again, and I believe that. But I also know that you do need to have a direction. You do need to have a focus, and you also need to surround yourself with those types of people. Because if you've ever experienced it where you're maybe out to coffee with a friend and maybe they, work in the insurance business, nothing wrong with that, by the way, but they're just not in the online space, right? They're not in this world. And so for you to have a conversation with them, it's probably not going to be that effective for you or for them, right? And it's just not enjoyable. And why do you have to talk with everyone that you know about business? Maybe you don't want to, and that's a great way to reset. But what I have realized is whenever you get surrounded with like-minded people and you start building out those networks or that network of like-minded people that get it, right? They're there for that reason. And for me, our listeners here within the Amazing Seller and Brand Accelerator Live, people attending, they're really there to build a brand that supports their lifestyle. Like plain and simple. I just wrote an email this morning talking about, a lot of gurus out there, they're flashing these numbers and then they're saying like, oh, look at my yacht, look at my Lambo, look at, all the fancy stuff that I have. And it's like, that's going to attract those types of people. But my kind of people, and I think if you're listening to this, it's probably you and anyone that's attending Brand Accelerator Live, it's really about creating the business that supports our lifestyle. My daughter just went off to 6th grade. I was there to watch that. I'm going to be there when she gets home from school. I'm going to be able to hear all about it, right? Those are things that I never want to regret. I never want to miss. Now that's me. That doesn't mean it has to be you, but I'm pretty sure if you followed me for any period of time and you're still listening, it probably resonates with you. And I actually just recently posted a voicemail, which was, it was pretty crazy. And I got a lot of great feedback on that, but it was a voicemail from Dave who, really talked about how he wanted freedom in his life. He wanted flexibility so he could be with his 3 kids and he can enjoy, the life that he has been given the opportunity to live, right? And so it really resonated with him. It resonates with me. It resonated with another guy, Radu, who's also going to be attending. Both of those guys are going to be attending Brand Accelerator Live, but they both have the same vision, the same desires, the same wants. And yes, it's nice to have a few toys. Like I have a 1973 Mustang. That's my Lambo, guys. All right. Like that fires me up because I get to drive an old classic car and it feels good and I just enjoy it. Okay. But that if that went away, my life isn't over, right? But if I lost out on opportunities or chances to be able to see certain moments in my kids' lives or my wife or whatever, like I would regret that. I would I would not feel good about that in 5 years or 10 years from now. So again, I'm kind of going down this road of like, what do you really want? And then once you figure that out to create the business plan, it's not as hard as you make it out to be. And also when you surround yourself with those like-minded people, you're going to realize very, very quickly that no matter what level someone is at right now, you're going to find out they still have obstacles. They still have struggles, just different, right? It just changes a little bit. All right. So that's what I want to do here today. So I have a full notebook. I don't know if you can hear this, but I mean, there's a lot of notes here that I took, and I want to jump right in. So that's what I'm going to do here. All right, guys. So again, this was Pat Flynn's event, which Pat Flynn is going to be one of our speakers at Brand Accelerator Live, which I'm super excited about. And so let me just kind of dig in. All right. So the first speaker, this was a surprise speaker, by the way, which I've never heard of this guy. Really like this guy a lot. Has a great story. And his name is Eric Friedson. I think that's how you pronounce it. But his story is, he was someone who really loved art. And he's like, how does someone be successful at art? Right. And so a long story short, and he shares his whole story of how like he had nothing. I mean, literally, he's a young kid, but he had nothing. He was living in an apartment. He had all of his like photography gear and video gear and all of his paint stuff. And he was actually creating a custom design with paint, like brushes, not like Photoshop. And the actual apartment caught on fire and he lost everything. And I think he still was able to salvage that piece of artwork, or at least the design concept. But what he was really focusing on to teach us is that life and business has seasons. Now think about that for a minute. What he means by that, and I totally get it. When he was starting to say it, I'm like, I get it, right? If you're in a summer season, like think about summer, right? The sun's out, the pool, right? We got all those cool things. Go to the amusement park, maybe fairs. We get to travel a little bit with the family. We do vacations. Summer is fun, right? And it's great. Everything is running smooth. Everything is great, right? But then you got winter. And that's actually why I moved to South Carolina, by the way. But you have winter, right? The winter season. And usually in the winter season is when we start to identify bad things or struggles, right? But here's the deal. You're always going to have these seasons throughout your journey, but it's how you react to those or how you deal with those is how you get through it so you can get into spring and then summer again. Okay, so just think about that. If you're in right now a winter season where things are just not going as planned, understand summer is coming. You just got to go out there and you have to, really work towards it. Summer isn't just going to appear, right? You have to go out there and actually go get it. Or if you're like me and you want summer a little bit more frequently throughout the year with some sunshine, then you move to South. Or, you move to South Carolina, you move to the South. But when he was going through his story and talking about his winter of when he lost everything in that fire, he could have just given up. He could have crawled under a rock, but he didn't, right? He was able to pull himself through and continue to press on and take action, knowing that summer is right around the corner. You just got to get yourself out of there. So how do you get yourself out of the winter? Well, you don't worry about what you can't control. He couldn't control that everything was burned up, but what could he control? Every single day taking an action to get him a result to where he wants to go. And then that will eventually get him into spring and then summer. Okay? That happens, guys. Things are going to happen. Anyone that tells you everything's going to be perfect, your business is going to run on autopilot, everything is going to run smooth, they're lying to you. Okay? We all are going to have these obstacles. I mean, let me just be honest with you guys, right? Brand Accelerator Live right now, depending on when you're listening to this, okay, we are just under 30 days away, okay? Now, has it been easy from the time I announced it to the time that we're going to have this live event? The answer is no, okay? Is it going to be worth it? Yes, right? But are there things that came up through it that I was scratching my head saying like, man, is this really worth it? Like, is it worth the stress that I'm going under right now? But then I would ask myself, but what about the people that you're not able to connect with or have them get connected and then change their lives. And then when I get voicemails from Dave, I get a Facebook message saying that he heard that voicemail from Dave, and then he told me his story of how the podcast and how the connections have really changed his life and his business. And that's Radu, by the way. So when you start to doubt yourself, you also have to ask yourself, why are you doing it and what are you striving for? For me, the event is really about getting community together. It's about me being able to connect the people that I want to learn from and the people that I trust to come to one place. And then from there, the magic happens. The other thing that happens at a live event, and I'm a perfect example of this, I just got back from Flynn Con. I've got a book full of notes, right? And now I'm not going to go through and do every single thing here, but I didn't want to forget it, right? And I'm going to actually give you like some of those highlights, like I said, and just some of those big key takeaways that I took away. But really from his session, in a nutshell, it was like, listen, you're going to have seasons in life. You're going to have seasons in business, right? Celebrate the summer seasons. Celebrate it. We don't take time to celebrate our accomplishments. You right now listening have probably accomplished something that you're not giving yourself credit, or you didn't take time to celebrate. You're like, okay, cool. Yep, that worked. Good. Go on to the next thing. No, we need to slow down, celebrate it. All right. And then those winter seasons, when they come, then we know this is something that's temporary. Let me go back to what did work. Okay. Celebrate, right? Yeah. All right. We did it. And then don't worry about what you can't control. So many people are, what do I do about this Trump tax? What am I going to do? It's 25%. You deal with it, right? You restructure your business maybe. Maybe you start leaning a little bit more on digital products or maybe traffic so you can monetize it or affiliate offers. Maybe that's maybe this was meant to happen for a reason so that way there you weren't so heavily focused on physical products on just Amazon. Right? Or maybe your account got suspended because your competition heated up and then they put a false claim on your account. And then you're like, this sucks. Like, why did I do this? It's probably a wake up call to say, listen, you shouldn't be dependent on that one channel, right? Like you got to look at what's happening and then ask yourself that question, right? Why is this happening to me? Oh, it's to tell me that I shouldn't be dependent on this channel. Or, oh, it's telling me that I should learn how to email list build because I know that that's going to allow me to diversify my traffic and my revenue. Okay. So you need to just ask different questions. All right. But anyway, back to what Eric had said. Again, his was big about seasons. I loved it. He also, here's a couple of the notes that I wrote down. Don't be selfish with your gifts. Okay. You have a talent or you can learn one. All right. So many people don't realize that they're holding on to a talent of theirs, right? And your talent might be figuring out how to create your online business. And then from there, you say, oh, well, this might not be the direction I want to go, but I learned a whole bunch by going through this process. So now I'm going to pivot. That could be it, right? But you need to understand that you do have a talent and you can't be selfish with them, meaning let the world know about them. Create the business, the lifestyle that you want. All right. Don't be selfish. All right. The other thing is know your season and work out of it. Okay. And what I mean by that is kind of what I said before, and this is what Eric was saying, is understand when you're in the winter season and understand how to celebrate the summers. So this way here, you can build that momentum to carry you through the winter. Okay. And then the other thing is own your story or let it own you. Let's think about that for a minute. Own your story, or let it own you. You could be like, oh yeah, but I had a bad childhood. So because of that, that's why I can't be successful, right? That's your story, okay? And you're going to let it own you if you allow that to happen. Or you can say, you know what? That's made me a stronger person. I mean, if you guys didn't listen to my story, I went through and talked about, my childhood and, being in 4th and 5th grade and going through a really tough time with my mother, in and out of rehab for alcohol and prescription drugs. Like I went through that. It wasn't an easy time. Now I can sit here and feel sorry for myself about this, or I can say, you know what, that made me a stronger person. And now I sympathize with those people and I want to help those people. Like, so you see what I'm saying? Like I took something that could have owned me. And then I said, you know what? I'm going to own my story and I'm going to use it to my advantage. Okay. We all have things that we can lean on or that we can say, you know what? This happened for a reason and it taught me this, right? So, okay, seasons. All right. So just keep that in mind. Let's move into a little bit of time management. Who doesn't want to have, better time management skills, right? So what we did here was Pat actually had a VIP morning session and people got to ask questions. And one of the big questions was like time management, like how the heck do you do it? So I'm going to kind of give you a little bit of the play-by-play there on what he had talked about. Because I think it is important that we all know that time management, it's hard, right? Especially when you're working for yourself, okay? So the one thing that he said, and I love this, was just-in-time learning. Now, you guys have probably heard me say it in the past. Well, I'm saying it again because he says it all the time, and I totally agree with him. Just-in-time learning. Only allow yourself to consume information, okay, that is relevant to your next step. Let's say that one more time. Just-in-time learning. Only allow yourself to consume information that is relevant to your next step. Now, have you ever heard of this thing called FOMO? Fear of missing out? Well, Pat actually coined a different term, and this one is JOMO. JOMO. Joy of missing out. I know myself personally, I fall into this trap. You don't want to miss out, right? You don't want to miss out on the new wave. You don't want to miss out on, the next thing or get behind with social media, or you think because everyone else is doing an Instagram channel, you need to do an Instagram channel. And I totally get it, but you can't fall into that trap. And what he's talking about here is the joy of missing out. That means that you've said no to something. And that means that you can focus more of your time on the efforts that's going to get you to where you want to go. So this was the next part of the notes that I took here. And basically it was the 20% itch rule. Okay. And what that does is you're going to allow yourself, if you want to, okay, the freedom to use 20% of your time to explore and experiment with new things. So I get people that say, Scott, I'm thinking about testing out this new market over here. And I generally tell them, well, why are we skipping working on the thing that's working or the thing that you're, spending most of your time on and you want to grow? Well, because I don't know. I want to see what happens and I'm interested in this. So this right here kind of helps with that. If you want to allow 20% of your time, only 20% of your time, then you can experiment and play. Okay, because I think it's important to play, right? But if you're talking about, well, I want to go out there and build this massive funnel and I want to learn Facebook ads and you want to do this all at once, it's going to be hard to only focus 20% of your time. And then you might find yourself cheating and doing 50% of your time and then your business suffers. So we don't want to do that either. So I'd be careful with that one. But if you do have the discipline to only allow yourself 20% of your time, then great. Then go ahead and give it a shot. Now, the other part of my notes here was that he was saying, if you are going to do this, you do need to be disciplined and you do need to figure out like when you are going to play. Okay. And you really want to map it out. Like, what does your week look like? Where do you have that 20% of time? Is it an hour every Wednesday that you get to do that? Or, every Thursday, or maybe it's Wednesday, Thursday for an hour each time, like whatever it is, you do want to block that out. It's really important with time management, especially, is to really map things out. So this way here, it's scheduled. It is so important to schedule. So let me kind of give a few more bullet points here on some takeaways. And this one here came in from Mark Mason from LateNightIM.com. And what he basically said he does, which I thought was really cool because we got like different perspectives and just different takeaways from other speakers. I really like that. So what he said was, do one thing every day to move the business forward. And that seems kind of obvious, but it's so true. Like, you need to sit down and schedule time to really look at the business, right? I've said this before. So you need to maybe take an hour and go, okay, where do I want the business to go? And then you're going to go backwards and kind of work yourself backwards to where then you can say, okay, well, this seems like the next move that I have to do in order to get to the next move and then the next move. So planning is so critical. And so many people think that it's a waste of time because they could be doing something. I'd rather see you take an hour or two and plan out where do you want the business to go? Like, what is the next goal for the business? And then you need to work backwards and then building these action steps. So this way here, you can sit down and focus for that 90 minutes. And that was another thing that he said was 90 minutes of focus time, which is a huge takeaway for anyone that is struggling with time management. So number one, plan, sit down for that hour or two or whatever and plan. And then from there, come up with what you're going to do in the time that you sit down. And you might even need to do this like once a week. You might have to sit down and go, okay, now that I know the big plan, now I got to reverse it back. And then I got to basically reevaluate every week and what happened. Like, did I accomplish everything? What am I short on? What did I overachieve on? What can I move forward on to the next thing, right? So you want to have that stuff mapped out. Now, the one thing that he had talked about was finding the 20% that works, or that, if you do, will most likely have some positive effects on your business. Now, you guys know I've talked a lot lately about building a list and building your content and building out the external traffic and all that. And it's funny because he actually was using that as an example. And so what he does is he lists on a piece of paper 52 lines. All right. And again, this is going back to planning. So 52 lines. All right. And on those lines, it's basically a week, by the way, right? So each of those weeks, you want to map out exactly what you are going to be working on every single week. And you also want to be thinking about traffic and revenue that is going to drive the business. So if you want to do some upcoming promotions to your email list, then you would mark that out. Maybe every 2 weeks, you're going to have something and you're going to list that out. Now, this could also work individually or independently of like certain jobs or certain parts of the business. So let's just use content for a minute here. So let's just say I said, you know what? I want to create a piece of content for the next 52 weeks, which I'm a huge fan of. And this way here, every single week, something is being published. All right. So you would write down 52 lines. And then maybe what you're going to do is sit down for that hour of work time and you're going to figure out what topic or what piece of content is going to be created for that week. And then from there, you can batch if you want to and say, oh, I'm going to record or a video, or I'm going to write on these 3 or 4 topics, and you can get ahead. And then this way here, it's already set up, right, for that one thing. All right. So again, not to get too confusing here because it doesn't have to be, but you need to have the overall plan. And then you might even want to break that out into separate chunks or parts of the business. And then from there, map that out with a 52 line piece of paper and just create your lines and then fill in the blanks. So I really, really like that. You definitely want to be thinking at least 2 to 3 months out in advance. So this way here, you're not thinking when you sit down what you should be working on. All right. So again, that is how you can get a lot done with the amount of time that you have. Because I know a lot of you are listening. You're like, well, Scott, I only have an hour a day. I only have 2 hours a day. It's plenty. 7 hours a day. 7 hours a week. If you get 7 hours a day, imagine how much you can accomplish in 7 hours a day. I try to take 3 to 4 hours of really solid work time, but I also need to plan. Like right now, I'm recording this. This was thought about last week of what I wanted to record this week. And that also has to do with interviews and stuff. But I knew that I wanted to get this out to you guys because I knew it would be beneficial and because I just got back from this event. So it was fresh, right? And I wanted to be able to share that with you. So again, planning is key. You have to plan. And then from there, you have to execute and take that action. All right. So moving on, let's move on down the list here because again, I took a lot of notes and I can't cover them all here, but I want to give you as much as I can. All right. This one here, this was interesting. Win the ladder to success. All right. Now, what Pat did, it was funny. He actually had 3 ladders up on stage, and these ladders were really demonstrating what your different parts of your life or your different climbs are like, I guess is kind of how you can look at it, right? So your first ladder is maybe, well, I got out of high school and now I'm going to college and I'm trying to land that job, right? And you get there and then you kind of go back to the next ladder. You kind of hop off that ladder, go to the bottom of the other ladder, and now you're working yourself up again, right? You're trying to climb the ranks in that company and getting promotions. And then from there, you may either get a promotion or you may lose your job or you may get laid off like he did. And then guess what? You got to start back at the bottom of the ladder. There's probably going to be multiple ladders in your life, these different climbs. And you know what Tony Robbins says, which I believe in, is, if you're not growing, you're dying. And I believe in that. So every ladder is a little bit of a growth thing, right? But getting from one ladder to the other, it could be a little shaky. And he was demonstrating this on stage. So he was up on, he was kind of like up on one ladder and then he'd put his leg out and go to the other ladder on the right. And then he'd say, I'm a little nervous to jump over here. So sometimes it's going to be a little bit of that risk too, right? Like, if I go over here, I might stumble a little bit, or I might fall down to the next rung. Or God forbid, you might fall off the ladder completely, but we're not going to think that. We're going to think that you're going to get over to that next ladder, right? So that's what he was saying here. And so he gave like 8 different ways to win the ladder, okay, that you're climbing right now. So I'm going to go through those really quickly. All right. So number 1, get support and get someone to help hold the ladder. And what does that mean? Well, it means surround yourself with like-minded people. It means maybe finding someone in your network right now that you could have as a accountability partner, something like that, right? But you are going to need some support, so that way there you can make sure that ladder is strong. That also could mean, going out there and learning a little bit more about what you're about to do, so that way there it's less risky, right? And then the next one he talks about is seeking mentorship. So that can kind of go hand in hand with getting the support, but getting mentorship doesn't even mean that you have to pay for it necessarily. You may have someone that you can shadow. I mean, a great example of this is like my son's going to college for a physical education teacher, right? He wants to be a PE teacher. Well, he's going to be doing some internship this year and next year and really learning the job, not just the schooling from it. So yeah, mentorship is big. Mentorship could also be from afar. Pat was actually one of my early mentors, and I really liked his style. I really liked what he was standing for and what he was doing it for, and really how he was upfront and honest with his audience. So I modeled that. I liked that too. And I like to be able to help people. So I went out and found someone that I felt was doing a really good job, and then I just modeled them. And that is a form of mentorship as well. It doesn't have to be just personal mentorship. All right. And then the next one that he talked about was looking up towards your goal. Like, where is the goal? Again, getting clarity, like we talked about planning, is so important. So you need to know where you're going and why. The other one's a big one, and we don't do this often enough, including myself, and that is pausing and taking breaks. And it's so hard when you're building. It's so hard. Think about this. If you're building a house and you are putting the foundation in, and then you are building the walls, and then you put the roof on, and then you're like, oh, I'm going to take a break. But wait a minute here. You put the roof on, but you didn't put the shingles on, right? You put the plywood on, but you didn't put the shingles. Are you going to wait? No, you're going to actually put the shingles on. But then you could possibly take a break. Right? So there are some different things you have to consider when taking those breaks. And I really think what Pat was talking about was pause and take breaks when you've completed something. And I think it's important also to give yourself a little bit of credit, like when you achieve that thing. We always look at a goal, and that goal a lot of times is, money, right? Like if we achieve like $1,000 a month, there's a goal. But what we don't think about is like all of the things that we've built and created to get us there. Those need to be celebrated as well, right? If you've never set up a website, a home base as we call it, and you spend the time to learn how to do that and then get it up and running and get your first blog post there, that's a celebration moment. You should be doing that. All right. So again, just celebrate your wins, but pause and take breaks. It is good. It's hard, but it is really, really good for you. This one's a big one for me as well, and that is govern your health. And he put a little note there, sleep. Sleep is a big one because we always think, if we just grind it out, if we get less sleep and work more, we're going to get more. And that's not always the case. A lot of times your performance will suffer, your health will suffer, your mood will suffer. So I do believe that when you're in like some certain time crunch, sometimes you got to bite the bullet and do it. And I've done that. And I don't regret that. But I do think once you get to a place where you can then manage your time a little bit better and you start setting up some of these guidelines and boundaries, then yes, you should be able to say, you know what, I'm going to get 7 hours of sleep a night or 8 hours, whatever you need. But I think it's important that we consider our health, because, we can do all this, but if our health isn't there, well, good is it, right? The other thing is that he mentioned was look down how far you've come. And I kind of touched on that when we're pausing and taking breaks. But yeah, take a minute to look down and go, oh, wow, look at that. I actually did something that actually worked. Or, oh, wow, it's actually live, my website or my YouTube channel. I've actually got 100 views. Wow, there's 100 people that seen my video. Like, look, take a minute to take a deep breath, look down and look how far that you've come. Or maybe even go back in time and go, wow, I'm not giving myself enough credit, but I went to college for 4 years and I got a job and I've climbed up my ranks. And even though I don't want to be here, man, that's pretty good. I did a pretty good job. Like, give yourself credit. We need to do that more than we do. Okay, the next one, trust yourself. And again, a lot of us don't believe in ourselves. And for whatever reason, maybe we've done something before and we felt embarrassed because it didn't work. There's all different reasons why. But you do need to trust yourself, because I believe you and we can do anything that we want. The only thing that's limiting us is us. That's it, right? So you can do it, I can do it, but we have to believe in ourselves. And you know what? It's going to take some of these small little wins in order to believe in ourselves more and getting that confidence. I mean, we see this in sports all the time: basketball, baseball, football. Maybe you've taken, I don't know, maybe you went to the plate 25 times and you struck out 19. Well, you're going to kind of think to yourself, am I going to strike out again? Right? It starts playing head games with your mind, and that can be dangerous. So again, you got to build up that trust and believe in yourself every single time that you step up to the plate. All right? So trust yourself. And then the last one was knowing what is important. Okay? Knowing what is important. Okay? This is a huge one. And I'm not just saying like, what's important, like, okay, yes, I got to build the website, or yes, I have to get my Amazon listing optimized, whatever. Yes, a lot of that can be important and is probably things that are going to be on your to-do lists. But what he was really talking about was what he calls the airport test. And what this does is this gets you clear on your why, on like what you're doing. And we've talked a lot about the why, right? But why are you doing what you're doing? And so the airport test looks like this. All right. So imagine going to the airport, right? 5 years from now, right? Today. Okay. You're listening to this in 5 years from now, and you run into someone that you haven't seen in 5 years, and they go, hey, how's life right now? What are you going to say? Right? And to me, you have the control right now to make sure that in 5 years, you have an amazing life, an amazing business, an amazing relationship with your spouse. Like, we are in control. Okay. So think about that. If you're in 5 years, someone walks up to you, someone that you know, and they go, hey, haven't seen you in 5 years. How are things going? Are you gonna be like, it's terrible. I tried to start a business and lost. I lost like $3,000 on a product I tried to launch, and I don't know. And then I'm still working at whatever business it is, right? Like, that would suck, right? So we can fix that, okay? Because we can create a plan, but we have to know what we want and why. And then from there, it's just a matter of getting there. It really is. It's just a matter of like, okay, type it into the GPS. Let's go ahead and get there. And then you might get on that GPS and guess what? You see there's a detour. Well, you got to take that detour and go around it, right? Or go over it, whatever. Okay. So I think that's a good one. Do that airport test. I think that would be helpful. And that came from Pat, which is, I think, just brilliant. Okay. And again, so what would your life look like to you, yourself, in 5 years? And again, maybe just not your business. Maybe it's your family. Maybe it's your finances, maybe it's your profession, and maybe it's your health, right? So there's 4 different boxes that he demonstrated or that he outlined: family, finances, profession, health, okay? And so ask yourself, how's your family in 5 years? How's your profession in 5 years? How's your finances in 5 years? How's your health in 5 years, right? So those are some important questions to ask yourself, all right? The next thing I want to say here before we wrap up here, and I know I'm kind of getting a little long-winded here, but this stuff's important, and I got even more notes. This is the power of live events, guys. You get there, you're not like distracted with YouTube ads coming in or a YouTube thing coming in, and you're like, oh, that looks cool. I want to watch that band. I haven't seen them play in a while. Or maybe you're on Instagram, or maybe you're on Facebook. You're at a live event. This is why I love attending live events when I can, is because you're focused for 2 solid days. And generally you have a notebook and you're going to make notes or take notes. And then from there, reflect on those notes. And just going through these notes myself, I'm just like, man, I'm so glad I took these notes, because I'm going to take these and implement them in my own life. And just as a reminder to be able to do that. So again, live events, huge. That's why I'm a huge fan, and also why I'm excited about Brand Accelerator Live, which is coming up really, really soon. So super excited about that. So when you say yes to something, you're saying no to something as well. Think about that. You only have a certain amount of time, okay? So when you say yes to something, you're saying no to something as well, okay? Now here's the other thing. When you say no to something, you're saying yes to something, okay? Kind of works backwards, okay? So we have the power to say yes, and we have the power to say no. And it's not always easy, because we don't want to disappoint people. We don't want to let people down. I get it, right? And we want to do everything, okay? But we can't. What's in the best interest of you and your family, or wherever you're trying to go, that will not get in your way? If something is going to take you away from where you're going, then you probably should say no. Okay, you probably should say no. Now, Pat talked about like, how do you do this? Because it's not easy, right? Well, you need to create, he calls them rules or boundaries. All right. So you need to think about this as you're considering doing this, or doing the thing that you're thinking about doing. Number one, it has to support the 5-year plan. Okay. So again, you need to ask yourself, does this thing that you're signing up for, that you're saying yes to, does it support the 5-year plan? Again, going back, this is why we need to create the plan. Now, the 5-year plan, it's kind of long sometimes. Things are going to change, but at least you want somewhat of an idea of what your life looks like in 5 years from now. Now, does that mean it can't happen in 3? Sure. Can it happen in 2? Maybe, right? But what does it look like that far out? So again, just something to think about, but you need to know, okay, does this thing that you're saying yes to, does it support the 5-year plan? Number 2, it has to help my health or relationships. Okay, so again, that's another question. Again, if we're talking about our health or our relationship. So if someone says, hey, you want to go play some pickleball? Which, by the way, I'm a huge fan of pickleball now. Greg Mercer, it's his fault. When we were out there visiting in Austin, he bought some rackets, myself, Mike Jackness, Steve Chu, and we played pickleball whenever we had a free moment. I came home, found out they have pickleball courts in my neighborhood. Now my son and I are playing like every day. So does it so me saying yes to pickleball, does that support my 5-year plan? Well, let's think about this. Health-wise, I'm getting a good calorie burn. So I feel really good about that. It also forces me to get away from business. So I like that, right? So mentally, it's good for me as well. And then my relationship with my son now, I'm out there playing with him. He's kicking my butt, but I'm still playing with him. I'm spending time with him, right? So that's 2 things that the reason why I can say yes to that is because of the benefits that it's giving me, okay? And then the third one was it can't be just about money. Right? So don't think to yourself, oh, if I don't do this, I'm going to miss out on some money. Is it a little bit of money? Is it that one little thing that you're like, oh, if I did this thing, it could add like $5 a month to my thing? Or are we talking about something that's looking at the 5-year and you're like, I want to have, like 5 of my own products, plus I want to have 10 other affiliate offers that I recommend. And then I want to have traffic that brings over another ad network. Like, does it support those things? Or is it you having someone say, hey, I've got a following of 10,000 people. And if you send something out, you might make $150. And you're like, well, I gotta actually put something together for their audience. It's going to take a whole bunch of time away from those other things. And it's going to be a short-term win. Is it worth it? Maybe it is. Maybe it's not. You need to ask yourself those questions, because once again, at the end of the day, we only have a certain amount of time, and we don't want to be busy being busy, right? We want to be able to get our time management under control. And we went through a bunch of different things here that I took notes from, things that I've already knew, but I'm, kind of like re-implementing them into my world as well. And now I want to transfer that over to you and just really getting clear on what you want. And I think that is key. And the other thing is really surrounding yourself with the right people. I can't stress that enough. If you surround yourself with like-minded people with a similar vision, a similar mission and path that they're trying to achieve, it's only going to help you get there faster and actually enjoying the ride. Because let's face it, like we want to be around people when times are good and when times are bad. We want to be surrounded with those people so we can celebrate together, but we can also help pick each other up when things aren't going as planned. So anyway, hopefully this gave you guys a little bit of an inside look of my notes here on how to achieve everything that you want in life and in business, because ultimately, like I said, time is flying by. I just was reminded that the other day when my daughter, went to school for the first day. And every single year when she goes to school, I think to myself, man, time just flies by. I've got 2 other kids that are out of school. Oh, and one other thing, and I didn't have enough time to dig into this. I'll probably have to do a whole nother episode because this one here was really good. Stu McLaren did a really, really good presentation. And the one thing that he said to me, which really, really hit me hard in a good way, was he said, I want you to think about something for a minute. Now, again, if you don't have kids, it might not mean as much, but just, again, kind of go with me here. He said, we have 18 summers with our kids. 18. That doesn't seem like that much. Now, he didn't say we have 18 years. We have 18 summers. So that means make sure that you're taking time to enjoy that season, right? And this kind of comes full circle now. We opened up this podcast talking about what Eric was talking about with the seasons, but think about that for a minute. You need to really enjoy those seasons with your kids, with your family, with your loved ones. Maybe you don't have kids, but you just want to travel more with your family or with a friend. It's the same thing, right? You have a certain number of these seasons. And for people that are parents like myself, it hits home even more because literally the clock is ticking, right? And we all know that. So we need to make sure that we can enjoy those times that we have and also working in our business to create the ability to do that, right? Because the last thing you want to do for the whole summer vacation is be too busy to do anything, right? So that's why I'm really big on time management and also understanding where you want to go and then mapping that out and then only focusing on what is going to get you there. All right. So guys, hopefully this has helped you. Hopefully you've gotten something out of this. And again, I am super excited to be hanging out with a bunch of you at Brand Accelerator Live, which I'm sure we're going to have a recap on that. And I'll probably have some good lessons and takeaways from that event as well. And it's just going to be awesome. And again, if you have not grabbed a ticket, depending on if there's any available right now, we are just under 30 days out. You can head over to brandacceleratorlive.com and see if we have any available. And if not, well, you can jump on the wait list and we can let you know if any become available. All right. So guys, that's going to wrap it up. This is episode 714. So if you want the show notes, the transcripts to this episode, head over to theamazingseller.com/714 and you can grab them all over there. All right, guys. So that's it. That's going to wrap it up. As always, I'm here for you. I believe in you and I am rooting for you, but you have to, come on, say it with me, say it loud, say it proud, take action. Have an awesome, amazing day, and I'll see you right back here on the next episode.